All right. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. This webinar is off to a great start. Project Portfolio Management with Atlassian Tool Stack. My name is Brian Dar. I am a solutions architect here at Expium, which is now a Valiantis company. Don't know if you heard. And I'm also a safe program consultant, an Atlassian certified expert, and I have a couple of ITIL certifications. All that to say, hopefully I've got some good information to share with you. I would imagine you also have some great information to share with us. And I'm hoping to hear from you after the webinar if there's any questions or any collaborations that you want to do. So this webinar is all about the Atlassian tool stack options for doing project portfolio management within Atlassian. There are a lot of options. I'm sure that you've tried to look through them yourself. I find it to be quite a slog. So hopefully at the end of this webinar, you will have you will come away with a mountain of knowledge as to which tool you would like to go with. So let's talk about our agenda. We're doing the introduction right now. First, we're going to talk about the desired outcomes of PPM tools within the tool stack, and hopefully, if you're not quite sure if you need a tool yet, these desired outcomes will help you navigate in that direction. Then we're going to talk about implementation considerations when you implement these tools. We're going to talk about all of the tool options that are available natively within the Atlassian ecosystem and also as add-ons. We're going to do a tools deep dive into each of those options and talk about why you might want each of them, and also caveats to each of them as well. They're not all the same. Then we're going to talk about Microsoft Project Connector options. We're going to talk about Jira Align, which is another option as well. And then we're going to do a conclusion where we'll have Q&A and everything else. I actually don't pay attention to the Q&A during the webinar because there's just so much to talk about, but feel free to save your questions or write them in the Q&A and I'll get to them as we go. Also, at the very end, we're going to do a giveaway for 2 Ray-Ban sunglasses. This sounds like a shameless ploy to get you to stick around to the end. It just so happens that it fits in the flow of the webinar. So please do stick around. You'll have a chance to win some really fancy Ray-Ban sunglasses as well. All right, so thanks again for coming. Hope you get a lot out of this. All right, so why do we want PPM tooling within the Atlassian ecosystem? Specifically, it allows us to align work to enterprise strategy. So we can take the team layer that already exists in Jira, roll it up into epics or features, roll that up into initiatives or safe epics, roll that up into strategy. So PPM tooling allows you to roll that hierarchy upwards. We also want to visualize capacity versus demand. This is extremely important for many businesses. How much work is coming? Do we have enough people to do it? We want to have clear dependency management. Atlassian's pretty good for that already, but these tools actually provide better dependency management and a much better visualization of them. We want to create predictable and prioritize delivery of value. So by making everything visible and prioritized within a system, and maybe you're asking yourself, prioritize, we don't even do that. Well, the lovely thing about these tools is that it kind of brings that to the forefront and forces you to make a choice, which I'm sure, while maybe scary for some, would be a giant relief for many. These tools also provide stakeholder and team visibility, which supports that predictable and prioritized delivery value. This also helps with risk mitigation. And my favorite result of any good tooling and process is fewer fire drills. I can't stand fire drills myself. So it is important to call out that the way people work and plan can be quite different from enterprise to enterprise. I'm sure you're thinking too, like one size fits all, probably not. Some enterprises are purely agile, some are purely waterfall, but to be honest, I think so many of them are actually a hybrid planning and delivery configuration. At least that's what we see within most of our clients. Nobody's pure anything. It's all a spectrum. I guess the agile waterfall spectrum. We'll trademark that in a little while. By adding these planning tools to your tool stack, you can keep your planning and delivery connected no matter what your environment. And I think that's the exciting thing is, if you are a hybrid environment, you can do agile delivery and you can do waterfall planning and you can mix those together with these tools, which I think is great and probably very practical for most people. All right, implementation considerations. Let's talk first about people, process, and tools. This is a favorite phrasing in our company. and hopefully in yours too. We believe that first you hire the right people, then you develop the right processes, then you put automation and guardrails around those processes with tools. So that is to say, often it's not just a tool that's needed, but a process change as well. Tools can only reinforce processes, good or bad. So a lot of times people come to us looking for a tools implementation, and over the course of that implementation, there's actually a whole lot of things that we need to talk about because, again, tools can reinforce bad processes and really ramp them up, unfortunately. Assuming your processes are already optimized, let's talk about the tools. In many cases, implementing these tools does not mean moving your team's collective cheese. So I think that a lot of people are really afraid of, a new tool and it's going to break everything we do. We are always pro standardization, but specifically both for training purposes, because onboarding becomes a lot easier if every team works pretty much the same. Standardization also supports cross-team synergies, but it's also important to allow your teams to do what they do best with the processes that work for them. A marketing process and a software process are not the same. So in general, standardization in these tools only really needs to happen starting at the Jira Epic layer, not at the team layer. So basically what I'm saying is you can leave the team configuration as is. There's things like status categories that help statuses roll up in reporting, no matter how the team is configured, as long as they're configured correctly. So if we start standardizing at the Epic layer, this allows management to provide prioritized and estimated work down to the teams. The epics can then be tagged with customers, products, whatever else you need in order to build roadmaps off of them. And then those epics tie to higher level initiatives, allowing company strategy execution. So hopefully it's not too scary, especially for your teams. Like we're not moving giant chunks of cheese here. Each of these tools that I'm going to talk about today, with the exception of Jira Align, can be done with just a few teams to start. This will allow you to solve emergent challenges as you roll them out and provide that light on the hill, Camelot team, as it were, that will attract everyone else into this more effective way of working. So I guess what I'm saying is it's not that scary. It just takes a little bit of time. So let's talk about your tool options to get PPM planning and execution into your system. So we're going to talk about a lot of tools today. I can't believe this webinar is only 1 hour. So first, apps. Advanced Roadmaps, which comes natively with Jira Cloud Premium and also Jira Data Center. Structure and Structure Gantt. Those are two add-ons that work hand in hand. Those are recently acquired by Tempo. And so that is one, that's a different option. And then Big Picture and Big Picture Enterprise, another set of apps that go hand in hand. And that was recently acquired too, although the name of, I want to say that it got acquired by AppFire, but sorry if I'm wrong about that. There are others such as WBS Gantt Chart and Big Gantt that serve their own purposes. These are great tools. We often consult on them, but we see them less used than the options here. Some other options, like you don't have to stick within the Jira ecosystem. You can actually connect Jira to Microsoft Project. This, in my opinion, is a somewhat less desirable way, especially because these apps up here, they do a lot already to provide that standard Gantt view that people are used to in Project. But if you absolutely can't get off of Microsoft Project, you can have your cake and somewhat eat it too, to use another I guess North American colloquialism. SEPTA Bridge and Fluent Pro Integration Hub are two ways to do that as well. If you are an environment that heavily uses Microsoft Project, we can basically connect your planning and delivery with these options. Lastly is Jira Align. Jira Align is Atlassian's premier portfolio management suite, and it basically lives on top of Jira. We're going to talk about that in a little bit too, but just a heads up, it is intended for very large enterprises and specifically safe enterprises. All right, strolling right along the garden path. Advanced roadmaps. And by the way, we're going to dive into the live tools. This is not a slideware exclusive webinar. So advanced roadmaps. What is advanced roadmaps? It is a cross-project road mapping and visualization tool with team-level capacity and limited auto-scheduling functionality. So let me just break that down. Cross-project, so you can bring in multiple Jira projects, and it will visualize issues in those projects as a roadmap. It does team-level capacity, which means that you can take a team's velocity and apply work in the form of story points or hours or fartlets, whatever you want to name your measurement system, and you can do capacity in that way, but you can't do individual capacity. It also has limited auto-scheduling functionality. I generally recommend not using the auto-scheduler. It can be finicky and confusing, but we'll find that out when we talk about planning behavior. It is native with Jira Cloud Premium and Data Center, so it's free. Great reason to use it. And the way it works is the primary object is a plan. Each plan has its own definable scope and views, scenarios, and permissions. Really important thing to note, this is not a Gantt chart. It may look a little bit like a Gantt chart, but it is a road mapping tool. Also, the way it functions in the tool is much like a Kanban board in Jira. It just takes the data that's in Jira and shows it in a different way. But let's find out what that different way is by diving into the tool. So this is advanced roadmaps. I'm going to change to my initiative planning view and expand some fields and explain what on earth we are seeing here. I also have a filter on that I don't want, so let's clear my filters. All right, so this is a plan. And what we're seeing here on the left side is our scope / work breakdown structure. And on the right side, we're seeing everything on a roadmap over here. Date behavior. All of the issues over here that are listed in the breakdown structure, they have a field or two fields on those issues: target start, target end. And you can use whatever date fields you want. Those fields are reflected directly over here on the roadmap. So if I change one of these fields to here, it will appear on the roadmap right here. So it's a direct, what you see is what you get kind of placement. Parents can inherit children's dates. So for example, this Epic 8 is actually inheriting the most extreme start and the most extreme end of its children's stories. Dependencies. Dependency behavior is what I would call soft dependencies, and it is done by Jira linking. So updating an issue's dates will not update its dependents. This is a really important key. This is one reason it's not a Gantt chart. If I set an antecedent's dates, it will not push out the successor's dates. So so for example, let's see if I have an example down here. No, I actually don't, but that's okay. Let me show you what dependencies look like. There's a view that's called dependencies report. And in it, you can see all of your dependency chain. This is not true critical path, but it's pretty helpful. And you can break things up by team. So you can see which teams have major dependencies on which areas. And you can see blockers / dependencies that are not sequenced correctly. And you can then fix those in the tool. Sandboxes. Let's talk about sandboxes. So everybody wants to do their planning in a sandbox environment and then push those changes to Jira later. Advanced Roadmaps provides sandboxes. So for example, I can change some dates here. I can remove this date and choose a different date. I can update this date. And you see all these little green flags that are showing up. Those green flags are getting saved up here under review changes. And then I can choose which of those changes I want to commit back to Jira. Additionally, there is different scenarios as well. So if you like to plan multiple scenarios, up here, I've got a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. So I can choose, or let's come in here, change some dates. Now these are red flags. And so depending on which scenario I'm in, I can choose which scenario to push back to Jira. Really, really helpful, very, very easy to use, and it's very what you see is what you get. It's just obvious the way it's behaving. All right, let's talk about estimation. Let me come back to my best case scenario. So estimation, you can estimate team level work with either story points or time tracking, but you can't do both. There is no native conversion of time to story points, although you could very easily write something in automation for Jira that would update those. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, every team has a different meaning of story points, and of course, when you apply story points to a roadmap, you are by nature converting it into time. And so if you know roughly what a story point is, and don't tell Agile teams this, I know this is a dirty secret about scaling, you can convert that into time and see it appropriately on a roadmap. Critical path. Like I said, there's no critical path, but there is a dependency map, which we saw. Baselines. There are no baselines in this either. So what you could do is you could do periodic photographic captures. There's you can save an image here if you want, but that's about it. Sharing vision, and lastly, sharing visualizations, which I was just in. This is a very, very strong program for sharing visualizations. You can create a read-only link and then share that with somebody. They can come here. You'll see that it's read-only up here, and they can still modify and sort and filter and change colors. They can do all of that, but every time they come back to the link, it's going to change, and that's okay. Speaking of all these modifications, there are a lot of different ways to modify what you can see in this tool. So the visualization aspect of it, I love this tool if you can't tell, is very powerful. Speaking of other ways to share, you can embed these roadmaps in an iframe. So if you own some web page, you can drop this in there. You can embed it into Confluence as well. I find that extremely powerful. And we actually use that whenever we do engagements with clients. We keep a project roadmap, and we keep all of our issues tracked in Jira, and we then report on them over in Confluence, where you can see in one massive status report the roadmap, where we are on the roadmap, where all the issues are. It's very helpful. You can export CSV if you want to do some additional data munging in Excel, for example. And you can export an image, like I said earlier, as well. So that's how you would do baselining effectively. It's not great. The other tools do have baselines available, but there we go. Let's talk about resourcing behavior now. So resourcing is done with team level assignment. So let me come down to a different view. Right now, I'm looking at initiatives and epics. In this view, I'm now looking at epics that break down into stories. And these stories can be assigned to teams. I can go all the way down to a team view. And I created these views from scratch, by the way, and you can too. So now I have all of the team level work. I'm not looking at the epics or the initiatives, although I could pull the epics in as a field here if I wanted to. And at this team view, I can assign stories to teams, and here I am grouped by team, so I can see all of beta teams work here. So work items are assigned to teams, and that's where the capacity function exists. You can then see capacity when I'm grouped by team here, and so this capacity is defined in advanced roadmaps as a default capacity for this team. And if I click into a sprint, I can then modify this sprint's capacity. If this is a team that is not working in sprints, but rather in Kanban, no problem. I can do a week by week view here instead, and I can change the week by week hourly capacity as well. Team availability is also done through the boards. If you need more details on that, we can talk offline. There are no skills assignments in advanced roadmaps. I think a lot of people want to use skills, but because capacity and planning is all at the team level and not at the individual level here, there is no skills function. There is an auto scheduler. You see this button here. Let me just expand this and show you what it looks like. If I click auto schedule, I can choose what values to maintain and what values to overwrite. I can then preview the results before I commit the auto schedule. And then I can, again, choose to commit those changes back to Jira. But what I'm seeing here is Jira's best guess at where each of these work items should fall, which sprint it should fall in, based on these dependencies that I'm seeing, based on assignee, based on team capacity, based on number of members in a team. There's a whole lot of information going into this auto scheduler. However, I've spent a lot of time examining it and playing around with different scenarios, and I personally find it too opaque and confusing to recommend right now. That's just how I feel about that. But you may have different results. Lastly, there is no cross-plan resource view. So if I have teams across multiple plans, I'm not really going to get any good team of teams view in this tool. Whoa, okay, that's a lot about advanced roadmaps. Let's skip back here and talk about your deciding factors. Oh, sorry. We just did a demo. We talked about tool navigation. We talked about planning. We talked about resourcing. All right, so deciding factors for advanced roadmaps. It's native with Jira and free. Who doesn't love free? It is not a Gantt chart. If I push one thing out, the children will not push out as well, or the successors will not move automatically. And it will not automatically schedule things based on relationships. It's just whatever the date fields are, that's how it appears on the roadmap. This tool is great for roadmaps, though. It does team level resourcing. It has opaque auto scheduling, so I can't recommend that. And it is great for sharing visualizations. All right. Now I'm going to stop really quick and look at the Q&A. Nothing there. Wonderful. I'm going to check the chat because, tool by tool. Looks like that's all covered. Awesome. All right. Thank you for answering those questions. Appreciate that. Okay. On to structure and structure Gantt. So this is your second app option. Structure and structure Gantt. Basically, this is a robust Gantt chart add-on for cloud and data center. So if you love a Gantt chart, this is the tool that you want to start looking at. The primary object is a Gantt, which is built from a structure. And this is the only confusing part about this tool. I think everything else is really obvious and easy to use. A structure is basically a work breakdown structure. And so you create a structure. So I would say, for example, pull in all of my initiatives, pull in the epics under that, pull in the stories under that. And now my work breakdown structure is automatically updated with Jira. And then I attach a Gantt chart to it where I can start seeing those Gantt bars based on the work breakdown structure. Each structure and Gantt has its own definable scope, its own definable hierarchy, its own definable views, scenarios, baselines, scheduling and resource behavior, and intra-Gantt scheduling behavior, which is really cool, and quick filters. This is a pretty awesome tool. Let me make sure that I didn't miss anything. All right, yeah, so let's just hop right into the tool. All right, so I've got structure here. And what I'm looking at is kind of similar to advanced roadmaps, right? I've got my, let me hide that for a second. I've got my work breakdown structure to the left, and I've got my Gantt to the right. So it's kind of like advanced roadmaps where I have my scope over here, but this is not a roadmap. This is now a Gantt chart over here on the right. And just to do a little bit of tool navigation, what I'm seeing here in the structure, I'm seeing my initiatives broken down into epics, broken down into stories, and I've got a progress bar on each of these, which is reading from the direct children. Even without the Gantt chart, there's something amazing about structure, and that is that you can do custom formulaic columns. So all the way down here, we can do a structure formula, and there is a world of possibilities hidden in this one line here. We can also count the number of leaves and children, and we can color things a certain way. It's pretty amazing. So you can add in whatever fields and formulas you want to over here on the left. And then on the right, we have our Gantt. And so I've got settings for this specific Gantt here. These settings can be shared across multiple Gantts if you want. I've got my resourcing view that I can activate down here. And so I can see resource usage if these are assigned. And I can scroll to today. I can zoom in and out. And I can see things like baselines. And then I have other views, view options here, including highlighting critical path, which we should see. Scroll to task. Yeah, there we go. We've got our critical path marked here in red. All right, so let's talk about the planning behavior. Dates. How do things appear on the Gantt? Everything appears automatically, and it is determined by duration. And so basically an item appears here on the Gantt based on a number of things. If I click in here, we can see its scheduled start and finish. We can see its scheduled duration. We can see its progress. Same down here at the task level. And I can do so much with this. I can do a fixed duration. I can do automatic duration. I can base it on time. I can do fixed start, fixed end. Right now it's in manual mode. I can switch this to automatic instead and then have everything update from there. I mean, there is a lot of things here. So basically it takes into account predecessors and successors based on their linking relationships. It takes the work sizing estimate into account. It takes the resource assigned into account, and it makes an actual Gantt chart. So this is something that most people are probably really looking for. The dependency behavior is also much more robust than advanced roadmaps. So here, as I make a dependency and I click on it, I can choose multiple dependency types. I haven't configured them in this tool, but here, this is a finish to start dependency. And that's the only kind of dependency that advanced roadmaps has. But here we can do finish to start, finish to finish, start to start, and start to finish. So if you're used to that in Microsoft Project, you will enjoy this. And if I wait long enough, or if I refresh, I should see this guy push out based on scheduling behavior here. You also have optional dependency lag time as well, lag and lead time if you want. So you can put in negative numbers there and then slide things appropriately. This does have sandboxes, but only in the data center version. So if you want to do planning that does not live change Jira, you will need to be on data center. And this is a huge drawback to this tool currently. It will get fixed. I know it's on their roadmap. But currently you cannot do sandboxing in Jira Cloud. Estimation. You can estimate in story points, you can estimate in time tracking, or you can estimate in custom formulas. There's also automatic conversion between story points available. And let me show you what I mean. If I come to the Gantt settings here and I come to scheduling, we have a default estimate. Will we use time tracking or will we use a custom estimate? We can use both if we want. We can choose which attribute to use for our custom estimate. We can also do, I believe a formula is in here too. It's either in this menu or it's just outside of it. But yeah, I can choose any number field. We can prefer custom estimate over time tracking if we want. And then we have this, hours per story point conversion here. We can do progress based on work estimates or anything else. We could base it on status. We can allow manual scheduling or not. We can assign what's the start date and end date. We can do milestone dates. But what I think is particularly cool about this is there's something called a slice here. And I can create a slice based on JQL. And so I can say, for this subset of issues, completely change the behavior of the Gantt. So for example, I can now have Gantt behavior on a per team basis. So for one team, I can have 1 hours ratio, and for a different team, I can have a different hours ratio. Or I can choose to color certain things certain ways, or I can change resourcing behavior, or I can change dependency behavior. It's awesome. So that I find incredibly powerful. Critical path highlighting, you see that right here. Yes, everything in red is part of the critical path. You can turn it off if you want. You can show progress in the Gantt. You can show dependencies, chart warnings, etc. Actually, wait, is that appropriately showing critical path? Yeah. Okay. Baselines. Yes, you can have multiple baselines, which is also wonderful. So I can create a new baseline. I can name it baseline 1, and it can be Gantt based or Jira based. If it's Jira based, it writes to Jira fields. But if it's Gantt based, you can have as many baselines as you want throughout the project, which I find very, very helpful. And then you can see the shift over time. There are no early start, early finish, late start, or late finish constrainers in this tool. So if that's something that you miss from Microsoft Project, you will need to save on Microsoft Project. Lastly, sharing visualizations. Oh, why is that looking strange? There we go. We can share this. We can share the structure with other users and copy a link. We can also export to Excel, or we can export a PDF or an SVG of the Gantt chart that is natively. We can also choose a range of the Gantt chart to export. Also, very, very importantly, you can also drop this into a Jira dashboard or Confluence. So again, very, very, very powerful sharing capabilities. All right, let's talk about resourcing behavior, because resourcing is important. Let me see if I can find where, there it is. So yeah, here I can see resources assigned, amount assigned per week there. So resourcing can be individual or team resourcing. So we saw back in advanced roadmaps, it was team only. Well, now it can be individual or team. And that's controlled in the settings here under resources. We can choose the attribute. Do we want to use the assignee for resourcing, or do we want to use another team field, for example? If we use a team field, we can talk about basically add the number of people to that team, and we can have the work breakout appropriately. Team availability is done through shared calendars, and those shared calendars have working hours and time zones, days and holidays. Resources can also temporarily be assigned a percentage. So here for Brian Dar, right now I'm at 1 unit of work. I can choose my availability calendar. I can make changes there. Capacity adjustments. So on work items, you can set the max number of resource units. So can 2 people work on this at the same time? Can only a half person work on this at the same time? Lots of adjustments there. You can also use work calendars to affect capacity adjustments. Just like advanced roadmaps, there is no skills in the resourcing section of this. So you can't designate something for a developer versus a designer. Depending on your process, I would argue that sometimes for some groups, that's actually too much detail and makes planning harder. Sometimes it's necessary, but this tool does not do it. There's also something called resource leveling that is available in Data Center. You can run a resource leveler to shift issues based on desired priority. And you can use either rank in Jira, or you can use some other priority marker. And then that'll bring 1 or more resources back under 100% capacity. Leveling also has some options, whether you want to move completed items or started items or manually scheduled items, and from when to start the leveling, which is also pretty cool. Just like advanced roadmaps, there is also no cross-plan resource view. So there's no aggregated resource view across multiple Gantts. Lots of information. I hope this is helpful. I know this is a bit of a fire hose. All right, so what are your deciding factors for structure and structure Gantt? 1, slices in the Gantt scheduler allow for granular behavior. In other words, Gantt behavior per team, but all within the same Gantt. That's very, very powerful. You can do team or individual resourcing, or both in the same Gantt if you want, because you can use slices. You can have multiple baselines, which is helpful. You can do duration based on estimates. So unlike advanced roadmaps where the duration is just start to finish, you can set the duration based on the work estimate and the work calendar that it runs through. Structures themselves can also be quite useful. So just the work breakdown side, you can present a lot of information in that with those formulas, and the way you build structures too allows you to surface data consistency problems within your tool as well. Again, there's no skills. You can do resource leveling, but only in data center, and you can do sandboxes, but only in data center. Those are two big problems for cloud right now. So, you know, I mean, everybody's situation is different, but really keep that in mind. And lastly, this, just like advanced roadmaps, is also great for sharing visualizations. All right, on to big picture. Let me check the Q&A in chat really quick. Q&A. What's the benefit of multiple baselines? Is that lined up with best worst case scenarios? I think that multiple baselines is helpful if you want to track throughout the project. You know, maybe you have an adjustment midway. So you do your initial baseline and then everything changes. So you do your next baseline and you can just mark, you know, as it changes over time. I agree though, you might just want an initial baseline and be done. What about remaining estimates from the teams? Yes, so you can choose whatever's going into the estimate within the settings of the tool. So we can choose time tracking and remaining estimate. We can have that fill into the progress bar if we want. It's pretty powerful. Basically behaves the way you would think it would. All right, on to big picture. Woo. Where am I in my notes? There we go. All right, big picture. Another app you can use. Big picture is a multi-tool, like a Swiss Army knife, if you're familiar with that reference. It contains big Gantt, plus modules for agile and program boards, risk management, roadmaps and objectives, advanced resource management, team management, and calendaring. And there's even some additional reporting in big picture. It provides a lot. And let me talk about the tool organization, because I have to explain that to explain boxes. Well, I'll explain boxes in a minute, but with big picture and big picture enterprise, you get unlimited box types, you get unlimited scenarios, you get a cross box resource view. A box is kind of like a Gantt/plan. You get module renaming, tempo integration, data residency controls, advanced reports modifications. These are all available if you use Big Picture Enterprise. So you can do Big Picture and Big Picture Enterprise, kind of like you do Structure and Structured Gantt to get the whole package. It's just a multi-tiered pricing level, and both companies do it. This deploys on cloud and data center, just like the rest of the tools that we're talking about. So let's talk about the structure. So big picture is structured in boxes. Structure was structured in structures. It's a lot of words. And advanced roadmaps was structured in plans. But in big picture, it's a box. And each box has its own definable scope, its own definable hierarchy, views, scenarios, and scheduling and resource behavior, and quick filters. And each box can bidirectionally sync with Trello cards too. Box types define how boxes relate to each other with parenting. So a box could be a program increment in SAFe, and that could relate to, why am I not thinking of the next layer up? A portfolio as a parent, for example. Or if you're doing traditional planning, a box could be a phase, and that could roll up into another box called a project. You can have multiple phases rolling up into a project. And then each of those phases has its own definable scope and information and views and that kind of stuff. In this way, boxes are both like an issue type and kind of like an issue template. Example box types include portfolios, programs, program increments, iterations, projects, phases, and initiatives. None of that means anything until we look in the tool. So let's go look in the tool now. All right, so this is big picture. And all of these tools you get to by clicking on apps, and they're right here, or plans if you're in advanced roadmaps. And what I'm looking at now is all of the boxes available within my instance of big picture. So I see home, which is a roll-up of everything. And then I see my hybrid portfolio structure, which has programs, program increments, and iterations, and also a project and a stage in that project. So we can do hybrid planning with this tool, but you can do hybrid planning with most of these tools. And then I have a demo portfolio that I want to show from here. What we can see on this overview page, though, is each box's start and end date, the status, and a breakdown of to do, in progress, and done work within that box. All right, so now I am in my demo portfolio, and let me hide the resource view, and we can see everything going on here. Let me zoom out so we can see what we're looking at. So this is, again, a Gantt, just like structure was. And so we have these new Gantt roll-ups here with epics housing all of the children. We can do the same kind of dependencies. Basically, it's a Gantt chart. And then over here on the left, again, we have our work breakdown structure. This is modifiable. We can add multiple columns here, just like in structure. So date behavior. Dates read in the roadmap based on manually updated start and end dates, or auto-scheduled dates based on dependency links. It does not take estimates or duration into account. But as you're planning, what's kind of cool is for each work item, you can choose how it behaves. So here, if I right-click on it, I can have it do auto bottom-up scheduling, top-down manual scheduling, or I can lock the scheduling. So what does this mean? Well, basically, bottom-up means that the children define the parent and its range. Top-down is the other way around, where the parent constrains the children. Or I can do manual adjustments as well. Dependencies are available here. And just like in structure, you can do start to start, start to finish, finish to start, and finish to finish. That's all done with Jira links when it's set up appropriately. You also have optional lag time. There's another thing you can do within dependencies, and you can modify these dependencies. Here's the lag time, and they do something called ASAP mode, which if you turn it off, it allows for slightly looser scheduling, but it still follows the constraints of the link. Something else that I think is really cool about Big Picture is not only does it have those kind of links, but it also has what I would call soft links, or they call soft links, I should say. So strong links are scheduling dependencies like end to start, start to end. Soft links are the kind of links that your development team would use to say this issue blocks this issue. And you can turn them both on. Do I have any examples in here to show that soft link? I don't think so. But anyway, when you do, oh, there we go. Yeah, okay. So now we can see that these are the soft links here that I've set up. Nope, sorry, those are hard links. Sorry, it's been a few days since I was in this. Yeah, there we go. Dependency type end to start. Or we can do a soft dependency type here. So you can really get a full view. You can have your Gantt planning, and you can also have the information from the developers. There are sandboxes available. You can do multiple sandboxes if you are in Big Picture Enterprise. That's an important thing to note here. So up here, I can make new scenarios. You only get one public and one private scenario if you're in regular Big Picture, though. Estimation can be done by time tracking or story points. You can do automatic conversion between story points, and you can configure that per box, which I think is a little less functional than doing it per slice in structure, but it's still possible to do it per box. You can view critical path. That is an option here. I gotta remember where that is, though. It's somewhere in view over here. There we go. Yeah, critical path here. So you can highlight critical path or not. Baselines, you can set a baseline for the entire Gantt, or you can do it per issue, but you only have one baseline because it saves directly to the Jira issue in a field. This tool also does not have early start, early finish, late start, or late finish constraints. Sharing visualizations is also, in my opinion, somewhat limited. To export anything, you need another app that is called Big Template. Once you have Big Template, you can export a lot of stuff. You can do CSV sharing and pictures and all that stuff, but it is somewhat limited up until then. So I find that to be somewhat constrained. Not a big fan. Otherwise, it's just sharing a URL. All right, resourcing behavior. I know we're running out of time. We have a resource view down here. It's done through individual assignment only. So basically based on the assignee field. This is done through shared workload plans, holiday plans, and individual absence adjustments. Capacity adjustments are done through a shared workload plan and applied to each individual. Big Picture does have skills. This is a really big piece of this tool. If you use Big Picture, you can come over here into the issue. You can assign a skill to this issue. So for example, this one requires a developer. And then there's this find the perfect match function where it finds everyone that's a developer that's available and says, oh, that person can do it. So that is a very sexy option in Big Picture. There's no resource leveling though, so it won't actually push all of your work out to level everyone under 100%. You have to do that manually. And there are limited, I'm sorry, and got ahead of myself. And there is unlike the other tools, there's also a cross-plan resource view. All right, so what are the deciding factors for Big Picture? You have multiple tools to start with: risks, program boards, calendars, and of course, Gantt charts. You can do cross-plan resource views, which is important to companies that do individual resource planning and skills assignments. You also have skills. You can do resource contouring, but not resource leveling. You have limited configuration differentiation within a box. And so I'm not a huge fan of that. You can only configure project by project within a box and not JQL query by JQL query. And this also requires an additional add-on to export visualizations. All right, moving right along. Again, for many companies, let's talk about Microsoft Project now. So those were the apps that you can do natively within the Atlassian ecosystem. But what if we're adding on something else now and connecting to Microsoft Project? Well, for many companies, the work done in Microsoft Project could be moved into Jira. However, if you're not in a position to do that, for example, if you have early start, early finish, late start, or late finish requirements in your planning, then a connector may be an option. SEPTA Bridge is a COM add-on for the desktop version of Microsoft Project. The desktop version then syncs through Microsoft 365, and this one provides extensive field mapping. The limitations, though, is you have to have a computer that runs the desktop app, but you probably have one of those in your environment, and that computer has to be dedicated to making the informational changes in MS Project to enable the synchronization. Fluent Pro Integration Hub is another option. This one's a cloud app, so you don't have to run it on a desktop. It's in the SharePoint App Store. It connects Microsoft Project, Jira, and many other tools. But its limitations are you can't map parent link. So getting above the epic layer is a challenge. So you can't sync to a hierarchy above an epic. So I find that one very limiting. Let's talk about Jira Align as another option. Jira Align is an enterprise tool for scaled agile companies. It's a standalone application that connects to Jira. It provides multiple layers of scale. You can go all the way up to mission, vision, values. So, story to epic to initiative to strategy to vision, all the way up. It also has 3 hierarchies. It has a work hierarchy, a people hierarchy, and a time hierarchy. It takes 3 months to implement, though. It's a very complex implementation and is really only for companies that do extensive SAFe work, Scaled Agile Framework. If you're here watching a PPM webinar, it's probably not for you, but it could be. It does. Yes, here's an example of how it connects. This is Jira Align connected to Jira. This is all the different hierarchies that it provides. And we have a separate webinar on this, which I'll talk about in a minute, that does a deep dive into Jira Align if you're interested in more. It also provides roadmaps. It provides support for OKRs. It has its own program board, so you can do program increment planning and big room planning. It has a program portfolio and strategy rooms that focus information on planning and delivery for those layers of scale. It has some pretty advanced dependency management, and it works via a Jira connector. So it sits outside of your Jira and then consumes data from Jira. Woo, that is a lot of information. Let me talk just for a minute about us, then we'll go to the giveaway, and then we'll go to the question and answer session. Thank you for sticking this out, by the way. I realize there's a fire hose of information. I hope it was useful. Expium is a Valiantis company. So Valiantis is North America's, and I believe Europe's largest platinum solution partner. I could be wrong about this. I should know this better. But we are a platinum solution partner, which means we are the top tier of Atlassian's solution partners. Atlassian provides the software, solution partners provide everything else and all the services around the software, like this free webinar, for example. We do extensive training. If there's an Atlassian product and you want to learn an aspect of it, either end user or administration or implementation, we can train you on that. We do consulting, so implementations, customizations, upgrades, licensing. If you want to learn anything about this, we can help you configure it in your environment. And then if we can't do that natively in the tool, and if we can't find it in an app store, we can build it for you. We have a wonderful group of full stack developers that create apps in the Atlassian ecosystem and also write completely external to Atlassian enterprise software. So if you need it built, we can help you. All right. Before we get to Q&A, I want to talk about, we have a lot of upcoming free webinars if you're interested in more content like this. So we just did our project portfolio management PPM with Atlassian webinar. Next week is introduction to Jira Align. After that, introduction to Confluence. Then Jira Work Management for All. That one is a whole bunch of different team-based tool solutions within the Atlassian ecosystem. It's very interesting. Actually, all of these are really interesting. We have a paid Jira Bootcamp and a paid Confluence Bootcamp. There's a webinar about Atlassian Cloud Migration, a webinar about Jira Service Management Fundamentals, a Jira Service Management Bootcamp, and a Jira Service Management for ITSM webinar. And then we repeat the cycle here. If you have any questions about today, please reach out to me. I know this is a lot of information. You can find me on LinkedIn here or send an email. We are always ready to answer your questions. Yeah. Oh, also, we have some pretty, I would venture to say, sexy special events. If you go to expium.com, let me drag this over here, which is probably how you found us anyway, and then just scroll down just a little bit, you'll find our cloud migration workshop, which we just finished. We have a Jira Service Management and Willy Wonka's Factory event where we will send you really nice custom chocolates. And we have a Jira Align Success Stories Over Wine special event. This one is where we ship you wine and we talk about Jira Align implementation challenges and opportunities. The Cloud Migration Workshop, this is a 4-hour deep dive into all of the caveats you should be aware of before you do a migration to Jira Cloud. So lots of webinars, lots of really cool special events coming up. And we give away a lot of swag in all of these too. So come on back now, you hear? So let's talk about who won. So specifically, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I was just told Alexandra Boisvert? I don't know, but you won a pair of Expium Ray-Bans. And also James Wong, you have also won a pair of Expium Ray-Bans. Elizabeth is dropping information in chat now. You just need to send a shipping address to her, elizabethwheeler@expium.com, and we will send you the Ray-Bans. And they are really, really nice. They're very cool. All right, so I'm going to do a soft close here, and then we'll do Q&A afterwards. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your kind attention. This is an hour out of your day. I know that means a lot. It means a lot to me. And so thank you for coming. I really hope you got a lot out of this and that that this helps you move forward in your decisions later on. If you ever have any questions after this webinar, you can always reach out on LinkedIn or on email. We're more than happy to answer anything you have. And with that, thank you for coming, and let's open up Q&A. And sometimes there isn't. Oh, here we go. Can we please share the recording? Yes, you will get the recording sent in an email after this. All right, well, if there's no other questions, thank you guys again for coming. We really appreciate it. We hope to see you at our next webinars. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you for coming.